Check, 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 check.
So you pretty much just never stop playing when you go to any events, right?
Check, 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 check.
Slowest way to mill.
How much damage did you deal with?
13 points damage before I got detention spheres.
The detention spheres are razor tip quick because it was going to kill them otherwise.
Oh my god.
Yes. So do you want to do the commentary?
Lansdale looked over and said, wait, am I seeing this correctly? Detention sphere.
I don't know a nickname that we can give to Chris. I said I can't think of a nickname we can give to Chris. Chris 21 to the face hotter.
I don't know. Because he never plays the same thing twice.
Chris, you swing for lethal turn 3 hotter.
Turn 3 win.
Yeah, Trish, you better kill him. So that's Rakdos aggro, is it?
Can't tell you
It's
that.
dangerous is what it is.
The first game against Ryan got killed in under 3 minutes.
Yeah, by the time they're done shuffling for the same game, it was like 4:50 or 45 minutes. 50 seconds left.
Aggressive mulligans.
One answer.
Watching him draw the answers he needed that game, I think he could pull it off. But because
That was hilarious.
like,
Oh,
okay.
just as good. He's
You
like,
put a bunch of creatures on the board. Oh look, I just top deck diverted.
last game against Ron was like, so if I just draw Mogus Marauder, I win. Mogus Marauder.
Oh, he'll like
9, focus out, the Courser.
Yeah, that's so excited. I was putting the sleeves in my pocket.
Couldn't be firm. Yeah.
Yeah, they're yours.
Don't you already sleep today?
yeah 6-2.
Nice.
I want you to hang them over your.
All right, folks, let's get you going. Come in here. Get you set up. Ready to go. Woo.
If I had the money to play things like that, I would gladly do so.
Alright, folks, welcome to another boring Sunday afternoon. It's Adam Jennings here with my co-host, Matt the Miracle Man Miracle, and we're getting ready to comment a finals match here for our PTQ follow-up for the standard win-a-box. Now, at the moment, we do have Chris Hodder on the left-hand side of your screen. He's running a fairly aggressive Rakdos aggro brew. And we do have him clocked at killing a player in under 3 minutes so far, during one of his matches earlier today. And on the right, we have Andy the Dirtler Mayor, who is running 4-color walkers, and who's had quite a few interesting games that have been spectated so far today, including one where he managed to make a comeback at 1 life, and end up swinging for over 15 with Krakens and Soldiers. So this looks like it might shape up to be an interesting match if Andy can survive long enough. What do you think, Matt? What are your speculations?
It should be pretty good. If Andy can get his turn 4 verdict, he has a good chance, but he might not make it there with Chris's dirty aggro.
It is a pretty dirty aggro, and especially too if Chris can get him down quick enough and early enough to kind of force Andy to have to take shocks to do that verdict even, it can get gross really quick. It makes any top deck that Chris gets all the more difficult for Andy to deal with.
Yeah. He also has a lot of late game answer. He can just play the Mogus Marauder, get in immediately.
Oh, most definitely. Now, Andy has been top decking like a champ. It does look like we do have a verdict in hand for Andy to start with. And it does look like they're determining mulligans. It does look like Andy, though, might be stuck on only 2 lands. He does have a scry, and it does sound like he's going to give it a try. So we'll see here now how this goes for the 2 of them.
Chris does look to have a lot of land, though, in his hand.
Chris is taking the shock right off the bat, going down to 18, and we're seeing a Cackler Unleashed hitting play first turn. We do get a land top deck for Andy, so it does make his hand a little bit of a risky keep. A little bit of a less risky keep. He is scrying an Urban Evolution to the bottom by the looks of it, and he did go ahead and pass the turn back. We're seeing a Swamp follow up and a Spike Jester swing for 5. This is going to be knocking Andy down to 15 fairly early on in the game. So it does look like it's going to be a bit of a push here for Andy if he's going to be able to survive long enough to have that verdict hit the table.
Yeah.
We're going to see Temple of Deceit hit play, and it does look like Andy still doesn't have that second white source for his verdict yet. He is still only stuck on 3 lands total, including the 1 plains in hand.
Yeah. He does have Syncopate, though, so he can slow Chris down a bit.
Yes, now he does need to have a land open, but Chris does have a Lightning Strike in hand as well. And I do know that he runs some Madcap skills, which can definitely make this a lot more difficult.
He does run the Madcap skills.
So we have a 2-turn clock maximum left for Andy at the moment. If Chris hits another creature, pretty much, it's going to get pretty ridiculous here. And Chris does know that it's going to be hitting the Spike Jester.
Yeah.
That is the best option here. We are going to see a Bolt taking Andy down to 7. If we follow up now, if we see another Spike Jester, top decking like a king here for Chris Hodder. Andy is down to 2, and I think he needs to get a basic here, and he doesn't get it. I think he is pretty much screwed at this moment. There is nothing that he can actually do here to survive. He can't shock in a land. He only does have a Temple in hand. And it does look like Chris will take the first game.
Does he have open source for that Abrupt Decay? Is that what that is?
He does have the mana for the Abrupt Decay, but I don't think it'll save him. He's at 2 at the moment.
Yeah.
So,
right.
Even if he takes out the Spike Jester, he's
Yeah.
still going to be taking 2 from the Cackler, no matter what. That's a little bit brutal, and I wonder here what Andy's going to bring in. I can't see him
Probably
bringing in...
the Thune, yeah.
He's probably going to bring in the Thunes, the Big Butt Sheeps. They're definitely going to come in. I can't really see much else. Maybe the Elspeth, if he wants to try and get some additional blockers down really quickly.
Was that the Elspeth he took?
I think it might have been. I think it might have been the Elspeth itself, but we'll see now as he does the boarding overall. Alrighty. So we're seeing here now, we are able to see Andy's boarding here a little bit easier than we can see for Chris's. Now there's not much here that I can expect Chris to board. He might take out his removal, but that's only if he doesn't know whether or not Andy's going to bring in the Thunes.
He does know he has the Walker, so he's going to leave in his Dreadbores.
He's definitely going to leave in the Dreadbores, I think, because that will really put a crimp in Andy's plans for the actual Planeswalkers themselves, especially running 4-color walkers.
Yeah.
So I say the Dreadbores will stay in. We might see Lightning Strikes drop. I feel that Madcap skills will stay in regardless, simply because even if he does get an Elspeth out, he's ticking an Elspeth down to maybe take out 1 creature with a Madcap on it. Pretty much everything else on Chris's side is going to be under that 4 power mark. And if he does go ahead and tick up, he's looking to have to use at least 2 of his soldiers to block, and especially if Chris floods his board with creatures, it's going to be really hard for Andy to deal with.
There's an echo in the middle. I think there's every time you speak, a second later it speaks it again.
Alrighty, so it does look like we do have our 2 players here have completed their siding. I feel that Andy may have brought in that extra Elspeth. It does give him quite a bit of game if he can live that long. He gives him blockers for days, pretty much, if he needs it, and if we do see any madcap skills coming down, it can eliminate them.
Yeah. Andy knows also that Chris is running black-red, so he's probably thinking there might be downfalls there.
He might think that there's downfalls. He probably knows there's Dreadbores.
Yeah.
Now, Dreadbores is a little bit easier for him to deal with, as he just has to keep up mana on Chris's turn. But with the creatures that he has as well, I feel that Andy's probably going to be taking out his Doomblades no matter what. So that does give him pretty much an immediate swap out there for something that he can bring in. I do feel that Andy definitely brought in his Thunes as a way to try and stabilize against Chris, and the Nyx Fleece Rams will really help him as well, because they can block for days, and they're going to be gaining him back a bit of life every turn.
Looks like Andy doesn't have any of his sideboard tech at all.
No, and it does look like he does have a 3-lander he is going to keep. He does have a Detention Sphere in hand and a Syncopate. So he can go ahead, lead into possibly taking out a 2-drop on his next turn. We are going to see that Cackler come out first off. I feel like Andy's probably going to lay his Plains here. Did top deck a Banishing Light as well. I feel he's probably going to lay his Plains there, keep up Syncopate mana, hope that Chris invests into a 2-drop, or at the very least take out a second 1-drop if Chris goes for it. So we see a Swamp. So what we're going to see on Chris's side here, a Madcap skills. So I feel that Andy's probably going to... Oh no, he's going to use the Reprisal here. So destroy target creature with power 4 or greater or can't be regenerated. So that did lead perfectly into there. So that does actually save Andy quite a bit. He hasn't taken any damage, though he could have been knocked down to 15 quite easily there. And he does still have a Syncopate mana up for a Syncopate for 1. So this does look pretty good here for Andy starting off. So we're going to see a Gnarled Scarhide. There is a Dreadbore in Chris's hand there, but it doesn't look like he doesn't have much other than a Mogus Marauder, a Dreadbore, and a few lands. It does look like he has a fairly land-heavy hand, still 2 in hand out of the 4 cards that he has. We do see Scryland come off the top here for Andy. It does look like he's going to give it a keep. He's going to go ahead and pass back. He's going to keep that Syncopate mana up here. He's hoping that basically he can interrupt something big here for Chris. Now I feel Chris is probably going to lead with the hero here. He's going to come into play tapped, and now he's probably going to come in with a Mogus's Marauder and going to swing for 4. No, he's going to leave it up just in case.
Chris is very familiar with control. I've seen him play it a couple times before.
He's trying not to invest too heavily in the board, and he's probably going to keep that Mogus's Marauder back as well, because if Andy does hit an Elspeth, it gets right past all the tokens. Swings either directly into an Elspeth or directly into Andy's life total.
I don't think he'll care about an Elspeth right now. He does have the Dreadbore.
So it does look like Andy's just asking a quick question about Tormented Hero. And it does look like it's going to be a loss of life. So it doesn't actually, or rather, it can't be redirected to a Planeswalker due to it being a loss of life there. So it does look like he did.
Has the Madcap skills.
Yes, indeed.
And
And
tapped in,
tapped
so
out, so that he could
do
finish
whatever he
off the
wants.
Cure here, or just smack Andy in the face. So we could see Madcap skills and... Oh no, we're seeing the Dreadbore. So he doesn't even need to waste the damage, so he could still follow up with a Madcap skills here, smack into Andy for 5. knocking Andy now down to 13.
Yeah. Andy does have the verdict for the next turn.
He does indeed, and it does look like we only have just a Mogus's Marauder in hand for Chris Hodder as a follow-up. So it does make it a bit dicey for Andy here. I feel like he does want to go ahead and verdict. He does have the detention sphere if he'd rather use that, but I think Chris knows now not to really invest much into the board. He's definitely not going to invest any duplicates, even if he does get them. Okay, so we do have Vanishing Light.
Yeah, Chris
Madcap
might
skills
go
fall
for the
off.
Mogus Marauder this turn now.
Yeah, and then that could lead for a 4-point swing, knocking Andy down to 5. Sorry, down to 9 there. So we do have a Syncopate for 1 available, but that's not really going to be applicable at the moment. We do have Chris, looks almost rather mana flooded for as heavy an aggro deck as he has.
Well, he didn't go for it, though.
He's definitely going to keep it back. I think he's going to try and...
Oh, he has the Lightning Strike.
Yeah, he's going to basically chip away at Andy, try to get him down low so he can do the follow-up of Lightning Strike and the Mogus Marauder for the finisher. We do have a Jace. Now, this is definitely going to buy Andy some time.
Yeah, I don't see him going down with it unless he gets a Rev for later.
Most definitely. And in hand, it looks like we have a Syncopate and a Verdict, at the very least for Andy. We do have an Elixir of Immortality and a Detention Sphere. So it looks like he's going to smack into Andy for 1. He knows better than to try and just chip into Jace.
Yeah.
No point taking a point off of Jace that he's just going to replace it with the next turn. So Andy is still going to be buying some time. Looks like he's going to save that Verdict for as long as possible. I feel like he might throw down the Elixir this turn, just as he doesn't have much else to do. And it still does leave him with a Syncopate for 3, if need be.
Yeah, it just gets him the extra life, so he's going to survive the little blitz play that Chris will try to do eventually.
Yes, indeed. So we do see a tap of 3 for a Lifebane zombie. So he's going to let it resolve here, and that's simply because he is probably going to follow up with a Verdict on his turn. It's going to swing in now. It's going to knock Andy down to 9.
Yeah, he might... No, he definitely won't use the Lightning Strike until...
He'll
Best
probably
opportunity.
save the Lightning Strike for possibly either the last 3 damage he needs on Andy or to finish off a Planeswalker. I think is the
Yeah.
safest bet there. And it does
If
look
he
like
verdicts,
Andy
I think
is
he'll
counting out
probably do.
Verdict mana here. So yeah, it's going to clear the board, and it's going... See, now this is where it's a bit risky for Andy to try and knock the Jace down, simply because we do have the Mogus's Marauder available for Chris, and he can finish off the Jace between the Mogus Marauder and the Lightning Strike. And that does deny a lot of survivability for Andy and a lot of card draw, or potential card draw, I guess you would say. So it does look like he's going to just go ahead and take the land and the downfall there. He didn't have the mana open at the time anyways to cast the Abrupt Decay, so I think he's probably going to go for the better kill spell there just as a
Yeah, he
backup.
could've had- No, he didn't have another black source, no.
We do see another land hit play now for Chris. So it does look like his top decks are starting to peter out a bit here, to say the least. So we see a Gnarled Scarhide hit play. I feel like we might see our Mogus's Marauder here now. And he still has the mana in case of a Syncopate. So we can see a swing for 4 now, either finishing off the Jace or knocking Andy down to 5.
Yeah. No, I believe Chris has no intention on going for the Jace whatsoever, or any of Andy's Planeswalkers, actually.
No, because what he can do there now is even if he ticks up the Jace, he can swing in, and if Andy doesn't have a response to that Lightning Strike, if Andy doesn't leave up the mana for that Syncopate, he can be just obliterated by that Lightning Strike.
He can crack the life bottle for 5 life at any time he wants.
I suppose I should update our game totals here as well, just to show that Chris is up 1. And we do see another Verdict coming in from Andy, which is going to buy him some time. We see a Kiora, a Temple of Plenty, and an Archangel of Thune. Now that is a big one for Andy here now. If he can start getting that life back and start stabilizing, then this game is pretty much his. We don't have enough damage coming out of Chris's deck to be able to survive there. It does look like we have a little bit of a jostle to the camera there.
So it looks like he might be ready to start dirtling around.
So it does look like it is Andy's turn to start dirtling away here. So it does look
He
like
got his
he can
Ashiok.
stabilize. The Ashiok will actually probably make this game much greater in his favor, even though that stabilization already came perfectly here for him. He is going to go ahead and just slam down the Archangel here now in case we do get a hasty creature coming in like a Spike Jester or anything like that by Chris. And he still does leave that mana up to pop the Elixir for 5 life if need be. We do see a Tormented Hero hit play here, and a turn pass back to Andy. Now it does look like Andy is contemplating an abrupt decay end of turn, but he's going to just leave it as is. He's probably going to hope that Chris will invest a little bit further into that hero, possibly throwing a Madcap skills or something of the like on it.
Yep.
And he probably doesn't view it as much of a threat there right now, especially with his Archangel of Thune giving him back more life than the hero could possibly lose.
He has the Tension Sphere as well as the Verdict in hand.
It does look like this is going to be pretty comfortable in Andy's pocket here now. So it does look like Andy is going to go ahead and pop the Elixir before damage. He's going to get himself 5 life and make that Archangel a 4/5 instead. So we do see Chris going down to 16 instead. This puts him on an effective 5-turn clock there now, and then he gains an additional 4 off the Archangel strike.
It looks like he missed one of his triggers, though.
And what trigger is that?
On the Archangel.
No, with the... Oh, he didn't take the lifelink trigger for the Archangel. That is correct. So he did get the counter from the actual Elixir, but he didn't put the trigger on from the Archangel damage itself. So he does look like he hits 2 Gnarled Scar Hides. No, he didn't put the second one on there. And we do see that Andy has left up that Abrupt Decay mana just in case we see something explosive come out here now. So we do see a Thoughtseize coming out by Chris. So we'll see now if Andy does go ahead and respond. But it does look like he's just going to let him pick of his choice. We do have 3 single target removal and a Verdict in hand along with a Syncopate. So it's a handful of gas and basically answers here for Andy, and not much that Chris can do about either. Chris himself does have a Lightning Strike and Madcap skills in hand, but now he knows that he cannot safely put the Madcap skills down on his Tormented Hero. And if it comes to racing, with the Madcap skills there, Andy does win the race simply because of the lifelink from the Archangel of Thune. And I think Chris does know that this is looking pretty bleak here for him now.
I think he's just hoping for a downfall or
Downfall or Dreadbore now would be really good for him, because it would kill off the Angel and essentially buy him quite a bit of time. Now with that Ashiok milling in, so it does look like he's hitting for 1. He's just going to throw it directly at Andy's face. And we're going to see here now what Andy does draw for the turn and how the match is going to continue along. And Andy does just realize that he did miss the second counter for his Archangel. It does look like he forgot to untap it as well.
He also just got a Rev in hand as well.
And that Rev can really fix this game for him now. So he's going to go down on Ashiok to get the Gnarled Scarhide. Now the Gnarled Scarhide cannot block, but it does basically decrease the time on the clock here now for Chris. And it does look like he's going to be revving for 2, getting another trigger on the Archangel and drawing 2.
We'll see if he actually hits this trigger.
Yep. And it does look like he remembers of the trigger. We see it go up to 20 here for Andy. And Chris does know that the game is pretty much in Andy's hands here now. With the Tormented Hero is able to block, but he can only essentially prevent a little bit of damage here now. It is looking like we're still going to be seeing at least 6 swinging in the air here now with the Archangel of Thune. But we do actually see the Abrupt Decay still in Andy's hand. So if it comes down to it, Andy can just eliminate the blocker of the Tormented Hero and swing for lethal.
Yeah. Chris can kill the Gnarled Skullhide with the Lightning Strike.
And all it does buy him, though, is unfortunately just a turn at that point.
Yeah. But if he gets a turn to get another...
If he gets a turn and he does manage to top deck that removal, whether it be if he kept in any Doomblades or the Dreadbore or Hero's Downfall. So it does look like he's debating where he wants to attack in here now with the Tormented Hero. He has declared the attack, but he hasn't determined the target as of yet.
I think his best bet might be Ashiok, just to eliminate another.
No, it
of
does
his
look like he's going to
creatures.
throw it at
Yeah.
Andy's head. But with the Ashiok itself, he does only have to take the Ashiok down 1, and it does look like he's taking the smart play, and he's going to eliminate the Gnarled
Yeah.
Scarhide. So this does buy him a turn to try and top deck an answer. The only thing we have to worry about is Andy leaving up enough mana to be able to syncopate whatever that he might use. So we do see 6 coming in. He does get the counter. Andy goes now up to 25. So it does look like Andy is going to officially dirtle his
He's
way to a
scrawling
win
a
in this
Kiora there on
game.
the top there now.
After such an explosive kill from Chris Hodder first game, it does look like Andy is going to manage to at least take this game to 3. So we do see a Spike Jester and 2 lands off the top, which is actually good news for Chris. It gets him closer to that removal that he might have, but it does look like he top decked a mountain.
And that's
So
it
it
for
does look
game
like they're
2.
going to scoop, and we are going to go to game 3 here. So it does look like Andy did bring in quite a bit there. We did see his Elixir of Immortality, which I believe he does keep inside. I don't think he main decks it there, but that 5 life can make a huge difference against such a heavy aggro deck that Chris has. That Archangel of Thune basically got there for him today,
Yeah,
and
no.
especially taking away some of the chances that Chris has to top deck that removal using the Ashiok, it makes it a lot harder.
Yeah, I've seen a bit of Chris's sideboard earlier. I believe it has a fair bit of spot removal there for creatures.
Definitely.
There's
So
a couple Doomblades there that I think that he should bring back in.
I feel like he may bring it back in, but the only worry we have there for Chris is if Andy's win con ends up being ticking up Ashiok and stealing creatures and putting them into play, the Doomblade is going to be useless against his own creatures.
Yeah,
The
but
lightning
it does
strikes
stop-
keep.
It does stop Thune.
It does stop the Thune, and that, as Chris did just realize, is going to be a major threat from Andy's side of the table.
Did you notice what it was he put back in his deck then? Was it a Doomblade?
I believe it might have actually been a Doomblade there. So he might have the train of thought that he does want to be able to remove those Thunes no matter what.
Like going in, Chris said his method was just to hammer through and just not care about anything but Andy's life total.
Yeah, and he did have it close there for Andy as well. He did have Andy down to 5, but that's just exactly where Andy managed to stabilize.
He
And
needs that turn 4 win on his side again.
Most definitely, and we have seen Andy stabilize at 1 life to be able to come back and win a game already today. So we do know that he has the ability to come back from a very near loss, but that was rather against a Celestia aggro deck. So the main advantage Chris has there is if Andy taps out at any moment, if he's at such a low life total, he can just lightning strike to the face to win the game.
Yeah, he also has the Mogus Marauder just for the haste and get in that
The
turn.
haste and that intimidation can get in and just cinch the deal, essentially.
If he doesn't
even-
have the counterspell or the spot removal, it's damage.
Pretty much, and especially even against, say, a Jace up. Being able to lay a couple 1-drops, then Mogus Marauder and attack with everything immediately, it can give Andy a little bit of a false sense of security. Say if Andy does a board wipe, and Chris has 5 mana, 2 1-drops, and a Mogus in hand, if Andy ends up doing a Verdict, wiping the actual table itself, Chris can then follow up with a full hasty play and smack Andy back again right away. So we do see the first turn Cackler again for the 3rd game in a row.
Yeah, he also has an Exava in hand, but I'm not sure what else.
It does look like he's playing him
think
with
I
a little
see
bit
a
close to
Mutavault.
chest hair. We do see a Mutavault in hand. We're seeing a swing in for 2 here, followed up by a Mutavault and another Cackler. It does look like he's going to try and get as much damage in as quickly as possible. We are seeing up to a 6-point damage swing on Chris's next turn here now.
He has Exava in him. What is it Exava does again?
Exava is a 3/3 with the ability to unleash her, essentially, the same as the Rakdos Cacklers. And she does give all creatures with a +1/+1 counter on them haste.
Okay.
So it does make the Cacklers a little bit more effective as a 2/2 for 1 with haste. So we do see the 6 damage swing coming in here from Chris. So we do see Andy being knocked down to 12. He's going to follow up with a Blood Crypt. And I don't believe Andy has any other... Sorry, that we have Chris has any other 1-drops in hand. He does have the Mokus's Marauder in hand as well, though. And it does look like he has at least one more land for him to be able to go ahead and hit that Exava. And we do actually see a Life Bane there, too. We do see a Scry land coming down here, but we still don't see that second white source. Now, we do see the Nyxfleece Ram, which will at least block 2 damage here.
Yeah, he's probably going to go for the Marauder on this, though. Or was it Marauder he had?
He does have a Marauder, but I feel he's probably going to do Exava first. And that's simply because Exava will be a 4/4. So it's definitely going to take the block here and still get 4 damage through. So we do see 8, and if Andy does not have a board wipe here or a way to deal with that Mokus's Marauder, he pretty much is actually dead next turn, because that intimidation factor will just get right through and swing directly at Andy's life total.
In his hand, and he has the Abrupt Decay from earlier, I believe.
He has a Swamp there now, but it doesn't look like he hit a untapped white source. Now, he does have the hope here, if he has a Detention Sphere, he can take out 4 potential damage by hitting both Cacklers. And then still have the Nyxfleece as a supposed blocker. Though it does look like he's passing back. So if Andy doesn't have a counterspell here, it does look like he's going to be taking at least 8 damage. Especially if Chris ends up getting another land and he can animate the Mutavault at the same time. And we do see a Spike Jester here. And an animation of the Mutavault. And we're going to be seeing a swing here for what could possibly be lethal. I feel like Andy's main route of play here is going to be block the Exava with the Ram. He's going to Abrupt Decay the Spike Jester and take 6. Yes, indeed, and this is going to knock Andy down to 3 to be 4 on his upkeep, as long as he does remember his Nyxfleece Ram trigger. So come on, Andy, will you remember your trigger? It does look like he does. So he gets a top deck here, and it's an Archangel of Thune. Now, what Andy doesn't know is that we do have both a Thoughtseize and a Mokus Marauder in hand for Chris. And what Chris can actually do here is Thoughtseize to kind of protect the creatures on Andy's turn.
Oh, he doesn't even need the Thoughtseize. Andy is tapped out.
Andy is tapped out, and this looks like it is going to be Chris's game here now. We do see Mokus's Marauder, and it does look like lethal. Yep. So we do have Chris Hodder winning in 3 against Andy here. So it does look like we do have Chris Hodder winning our standard follow-up for the PTQ of the Win a Box. So we will clear that up for today. We unfortunately did only have the chance to bring you just the 1 round, but it did seem to be a fairly tight round here overall. And it was pretty exciting to watch. And we did see Chris Hodder's deck go off aggressively there, especially being on the play. It just made everything that much quicker. That 1 turn ahead of Andy really does help. So I would like to thank everyone for tuning in today. I do wish you all a good day, and we will speak with you later.